Okay, I think we are live right now. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining in today. And today, our session is essentially covering scholarships in Canada. We have speakers from across different schools in Canada, not only specific to Ontario. So I really hope that you'll be finding the session helpful. So just before we kick it off, I just want to introduce our company and what we do. Wicked Connections was essentially founded by three co-founders, myself and my two other co-founders, Carol and Christine. And essentially, we wanted to help students, have an easier transition from high school to university by providing help with their applications, by providing mentorship and guidance. So essentially, Wicked Connections means Wish You Knew Education Connections. And essentially, what we're trying to bring in panelists like this who can share their experience and you can really learn from that and hopefully leverage that in your current situation and have a better turnout based on the experiences that they've had. So we provide one-on-one mentorship, one-on-one panel consultations, and panel discussions as well, and live interviews such as these ones covering a wide range of topics. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it off over to our speakers, and I'll get a chance for them to introduce themselves. So why don't you guys introduce themselves, which university you've attended, a little bit about your scholarships, and a little bit about the program that you're currently doing. So I'll ask Shovon to start it off, and then Nishita, and then Krishna, please.
Hi, I'm Shovon. I am from Bangladesh, and back home I went to Mastermind, was the high school I attended, and I was a science and economics student. So that translated to me going to St. Mary's University in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And I am actually graduated, but I majored in finance and minored in political science. And I was fortunate enough to receive the presidential scholarship from St. Mary's University, which was their highest scholarship offer. And yeah, I guess little comments, but yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Nishita. I'm an international student from St. Martin, which is a small island in the Caribbean. I actually went to an American high school back at home, and I was encouraged to apply to schools both in US and in Canada. I ended up choosing and loving my choice in Canada. I currently go to the Schulich School of Business, and I'm in their IBBA program, but I'm also specializing in accounting. And I got the York-U International Circle of Scholars Scholarship, and it covered basically like first year fees, but it wasn't like a returning offer.
All right then. So hi everyone, I'm Krishna, and I'm a fourth year student at the University of Waterloo, double majoring in math and statistics, and with a minor in computer science. For my background, I'm from India, so I did my high school there, focusing in math, physics, and chemistry. And I've received two scholarships from the University of Waterloo in my first year. The first one being the President's Scholarship of Distinction, which is the highest scholarship for incoming students, and the second one being International Student Scholarship, which is given to select international students. So it combined to a total of $12,000 for first year. So I think we'll be talking a little more about that.
Okay, great. That's good to know. I think we got a high-level overview of all the scholarships that you guys have received. So fantastic. So why don't you go about explaining to me a little bit about, the process of applying for the scholarship? Was it complex? Was it pretty straightforward? And some of the requirements that you've had. And we'll follow the same sequence: Shovon, Nishita, and then Krishna, please.
So for the presidential scholarship, it was something that was different from the entrance scholarships that SMU offered. And as most entrance scholarships go, they're just automatically applied as as part of your application decision and based on your grades. But the presidential scholarship was something that they only, I guess, encouraged people who had a higher than their, I guess, like what they offer for entrance scholarship, the higher grade requirements. So I was told to apply for that. And it was a different process, but similar to, I guess, many other scholarships where I had to write an essay and I had to submit predicted grades because we still were not done with our A-levels examinations. So school mock tests became a very important thing for me back then, which oftentimes we kind of I guess, put on the back burner because we're focusing more on what our preparation for our actual tests. So that became really important. So thankfully, I had decent grades for that, good enough for the scholarship, as well as I had to highlight what ECAs I had done. So all that translated, I guess I should also say, to a continuing scholarship of $9,000 every year, given that I maintain a certain grade point average in university too. So it was a little different from. I also applied to some colleges in the U.S., mostly liberal arts schools, and the financial aid process, which is what's done at the start of applications in the U.S., was very different because it involved financial need and like a lot of documents from parents and everything. If you don't have personal finances, that is. And yeah, so it was a different process, but ultimately I did not receive enough financial aid to go to those schools. So that's why Canada became the obvious choice, where they gave me a higher scholarship at SMU. And I also enjoyed the smaller classroom advantage that SMU had, and future immigration and employment opportunities. So yeah.
I have a follow-up question to you, Shovon. You said you had to write essays, and for the scholarship application, was it due before you got accepted, or was it after? So can you be a little bit clearer about that part?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. So I actually applied for university and got into St. Mary's first, and then there was a period where they were accepting applications for presidential scholarships from accepted students. So it was just and I guess it's important to mention that this particular scholarship, if anyone is looking into it, is open to both international and Canadian students, and it's like 8 scholarships per year that they give out. So 4 to international and 4 to Canadian. So it was very good luck of the draw that I got it. But yeah, it was after.
Great, thank you. I'll pass it over to you, Nishita.
So specifically for like York University scholarships, the way I remember it, it was definitely after I got accepted, but it was like I think within the same week or two that I started looking for scholarships, and I found the process to be quite easy. So my search was specifically for international student scholarships, as they are like of a higher amount, and I feel like I would get more out of them. And the way York University had it set up was you did one application, and then depending on your application, you either got one scholarship, multiple scholarships, or none at all from the category, from like the list they gave beforehand. And then it just depended like where they found that you were best suited for. So they had scholarships ranging from like a full ride for all 4 years, where you had to keep up a GPA, to even like just a couple hundred for books and printing essentials. I believe my application process just had to highlight my like extracurricular activities and any like social initiatives that I was part of, and like how I spend my extra time other than just academics. Similar to what Shobham said before, I also applied to like scholarships for US schools, and the process was very, very different. They were need-based, but also I never had to actually fill out an application for them specifically. They just asked a few questions regarding to need, and then they gave it to you based just on your grades or like your SAT scores, for example. Where like for the Canadian scholarships that I applied to, I actually had to like write essay styles or more like fill out applications. Yeah.
Okay. A follow-up question for you as well. So you said the scholarship application came after you applied to Schulich. Was that correct?
Yes. Yeah. I applied to Schulich, I think during December, but applications were due in February, and then I got my acceptance, I think, around March, and that was when I started the scholarship searching process.
Okay. Krishna, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think a lot of things were similar in my case as well, as Nishita and Shovon said. But I was more focused on Canadian schools since beginning, so I didn't really apply to any US or UK or any other schools. And the only schools I applied to in Canada were U of T and Waterloo. So I didn't really have to like apply to a lot of different scholarships. And more for the University of Waterloo, most scholarships were restricted for domestic students, and there were very few for international students that were automatically considered based on application, grades, and all of that. So that's why I got the President's Scholarship of Distinction, which is 95% average in high school, and then you're just automatically eligible for that. The only scholarship that I had to really work on was the International Student Entrance Scholarship. So overall, they just wanted like an overview of like extracurriculars or high school grades or things like that. And because I was in the Faculty of Mathematics, so math and computer science are together in the University of Waterloo, I had to take an exam for that. So specifically a Waterloo exam back in high school. And based on my grades in that, I was eligible for this scholarship. So I think more with the University of Waterloo scholarships, they don't really tell specific criteria for such kind of scholarships. It's just apply and tell us about yourself as much as you can, and then we'll assess based on your need. And I think I do want to add one more point regarding scholarships. I did take advanced placement exams, so these are similar to IB exams or such kind of exams, right? And these are mostly accepted in U.S. and Canada. And these were a huge help to me because not only did they enhance my application for scholarship, but I was able to waive courses here, which is saving a lot of money and saving just a lot of time as well. So I'm able to graduate one semester earlier. So I think that's something students should also look into because those exams are not expensive to take, and they're usually just based on high school curriculum. And if you're able to get those, they're recognized in Canada and the US.
Great. Sounds good. I think that's a fantastic point. So I think all of you mentioned that you guys had to fill up essays for your scholarship applications. And oftentimes we get questions like, what are these essays? Like, what essays do we have to write? So can you give a little bit more perspective in terms of, if you could give some examples on what the topics were, how did you guide yourself to write those essays? Did you seek external help or, how did you just go about that process? So I'll start with Shovon as well, then Nishita, and then Krishna, please.
Yeah. As far as I remember, the essay that I had to write for this St. Mary's scholarship was not really just a tell me about yourself kind of scholarship. It really did focus on what I was doing, why that translated into me wanting to St. Mary's, and what I wanted to do when I went to St. Mary's. It was very, I want to say, objective. So it was, I guess, a lot of times like a very common narrative among students who are graduating high school is like writing their U.S. college application essay and how fantastically story, how fantastic the story has to be. And it's like not this one I excelled in because I didn't have to like make myself look like this super, important person. I don't know. And then, so yeah, I just wrote a little bit about my ECAs and how they connected to SMU. Specifically, our business school focuses a lot on like innovation and entrepreneurial thinking. So I focused on the kind of volunteering opportunities I was doing at back home that kind of were similar. Like we were solving issues that were happening in our community, and so I focused on that and wanted to. And I kind of also focused on what I wanted to do, even though I hadn't done it. So I guess that kind of idea process was like what got me the scholarship. So that was my experience.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, you really took kind of your current position and what you wanted to do and what you've accomplished so far and tied it in with what school is kind of known for, their specialties, like you said, innovation, entrepreneurship, and that connection kind of, I think, really showcased how you can add value to not only your community, but to SMU as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. Nishita?
From what I remember as well, I would say that my experience was also very similar, where the prompt was very vague. It was more just about a general tell me about yourself, and we kind of just had we could take it in any direction we wanted to. The way I positioned most of my scholarship essays was benefiting from the fact that I grew up on a small country, like small island, and how that experience would translate into a bigger, like a country like Canada, where it's so much more diverse, so many more people. And I really used my experience, like even just like growing up in a small school and like how I was able to make connections there and how I would be able to translate that into a bigger community. I also did speak about a lot of my social extracurricular activities. And while I did have a lot that I did in school, I also made sure to also partake in activities outside of school. more in my like ethnic community, or even small things like beach cleanups. Since we are on an island, and I felt like having extracurricular activities that were like outside of school were like it better showed that I was more dedicated to like the cause that I was working towards, and I feel like that helped me stand out in my process.
Okay, I think my application was a little different compared to Nishita and Shovan's. So my application process, so the essays were more structured. They had like a list of questions, and we had to answer each one of them. And they were more about just academic achievements, right? So list your academic achievements, list your honors or awards you received, list your competitive exam participations, contests, and all of that. And then a little bit of the extracurricular activities tailored for the program and tailored towards academics. So it was more focused on that. And I think I would say that that part was not actually long because we were writing an exam anyways, as I mentioned, with the application. So this application was just a layer on top, just saying who you are. But the exam was the main part.
I see. Okay. So now I really want to dive deep into each of your extracurriculars. I know you've all had very outstanding grades. That's kind of a given for a scholarship, I think. However, I would really like to have some concrete examples of, some of the ECAs you've done, some of your key takeaways from that, and what you would recommend to some of the potential students that are wanting to apply for scholarships in Canada in general. So I'll go off with Shovon, Nishita, and then Krishna, please.
Yeah. So I come from Mastermind, and if anyone from Bangladesh is watching, there are variances in like the levels of ECAs offered in schools and things like that. So personally, I found that Mastermind did not have a lot of opportunities that I saw my peers have in other schools. So you really have to kind of venture out, like Nishita said, and do things that are outside your school, which shows your impact in your community on a larger scale sometimes. So personally, I was the president of the newsletter club in school. That's the most involvement I can say I have in school, other than like just being one of the top students in the class, I guess. But other than that, my friends at the time were doing a very interesting project, which was related to educating kids in need around our community, and so that was a project that was sponsored by BRAC, and so that added a lot of weight and like validation to the project. So I really focused on that as a means of problem solving, which I in the essay. So that was like my main focus, and then I also had some musical involvements and things like that. So I just highlighted a few things because I find that oftentimes a lot does not do the like effect that we think it does. So that was that. But in hindsight, again, as Krishna said, that there are a lot of scholarships that are just not the entrance scholarships and things, and these are based on your interests and things. So those scholarships are good to look out for if you have other interests. And like later on, I found these scholarships on this new website and applied and got a few bursaries here and there, not like small ones, based on my interests. So it is important to like look at what interests translate to what scholarships right from the get-go. So yeah.
I see. Okay, just summarize what you said. So obviously outside interests really matters. So probably hobbies, or if you have a passion, that's very critical. And can you shed a little bit more light on what website you mentioned that you had applied for some other bursaries and all? Was that after you came to Canada?
Yeah, so that was when I was already a continuing student. But it was just like the financial aid and scholarships website at SMU. And as Nishita said too, like one application oftentimes covers like a lot of like will get you consideration for a lot of scholarships. So that I'm sure is a thing that happens even in first year, but that was just something that I was not aware of at the beginning. And so looking back, that's something I should have done too.
And for the volunteering experience that you had with BRAC, like you mentioned, did you have a significant position in that, or what was kind of your role, and how did that kind of help your application?
Yeah, so it was not actually BRAC directly. It was program. It was a like organization sponsored by BRAC to do the project. It was called Perception Foundation, and I was one of the coordinators for volunteers and things like that. So, but it was so small and like so close knit that like we were all doing a lot. So I just had a lot of knowledge of what I was writing about, which is what kind of showed, I guess.
Perfect. I'll pass it over to Nishita.
So regarding like my extracurricular activities in school, I was secretary of my class, so I was in student council. But other than that, outside of school, I actually started a social initiative with my father, where we every Sunday we would make a big pot of soup with like the help of local caterers, and we would go in the morning and distribute them to the homeless people on the street. And this started in, I believe, 2016. So it was in my junior year, and we still continue it today. So even after I'd left, my dad continued it. My sister joined the initiative. We've got a few other helpers from like the government that are now even sponsoring us now. And this has grown from like feeding maybe like 10 individuals every Sunday to having about like maybe like over from like 50 to 60 individuals like waiting for us every week, and something that they look forward to. That was something I was really, really proud of, because I could like actually see the difference I was making directly. And I really talked about that, and I like focused on that in a lot of my scholarship essays, as I was the most proud of that. But another thing I also did was I was a part of the Interact Club. I don't know if many of you have heard of it, but it is an international club. And what we did, it was part of the school, but we did all of our extracurricular activities outside of school. And as I knew I was going into business, I actually applied to a financial position on the club. So it was like working under the treasurer and my managing the finances. And I think that also gave me a little step up, because I was like working towards something in business, and that also helped show I guess like my dedication to what I wanted to study. But if I had to give anyone like further tips now, I would say it's not even about like what you do, or like if you think that most students in your school are doing one way or the other. I don't think there's any correct way. I think no matter what you do, no matter how small it is, even if it's something like you went alone to the beach and you picked up a little bit of trash here and there, I think it's more about how much you're interested in it and how you portray that across in your application, and like the difference you say it made. So even if you feel like you haven't done as much as maybe some of the panelists here, or you feel like compared to your peers in school, I feel like you can still portray yourself in a better light just by making your actions more meaningful. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And I think I really want to reinstate the fact that, you know, a lot of people oftentimes just do ECAs or develop certain ECAs just because, you know, for the application process, right? But I think there's a bigger picture here, which is, you know, what impact are you having, right? Are you showing that you're actually taking the initiative, you know, to start something or create something, much like, you know, Nishita, back to your example with your dad that you're doing, that's a huge impact. You started really small, but, you know, you've been continuing it and you've had impact on so many people's life every week. And that's huge, right? And when you have that firsthand experience, you get to kind of portray that in your application. And I think the university really sees through that, and they're able to kind of, you know, judge your application accordingly. So to the people who are watching and who will be watching this, I really want to reinstate the fact that, you know, when you're thinking about what ECAs to do, think about what you're interested in, obviously, and see how that can, you know, have a positive impact in your community. I think that's really one of the best recipes to get a good scholarship in any university. Wouldn't you all agree? Okay, great. So Krishna, I'll pass it over to you to add your comment.
Yeah, so I think I've had a little different path overall, because my school and my city, we didn't really have an exposure to extracurriculars or anything like that, because we were just overwhelmed with school and especially high school. So I didn't really have a lot of extracurriculars other than just participating in school debate societies, or, you know, any of essay writing competitions, these kind of things, and not anything towards the community or anything of that sort, to be very honest. And I was lucky that my program, and especially Waterloo, they don't really emphasize a lot on such kind of things. And for me personally, I think the important part was just getting the exams and grades correct. So for those of you interested in applying to University of Waterloo, they have a test called Euclid, which is used for the scholarship that I got and many students also get. So getting good grades in that, I think that was the main part, because even the application process that I mentioned, it didn't really ask a lot about extracurriculars. It was more about academic achievements, contest participation, all those kind of things. So I think if you have a really strong academic background, along with extracurriculars, they never hurt, obviously. I think that's the important part, getting the scholarships.
So I want to elaborate a little bit more on the contest that you mentioned earlier. What were some of those, some of the competitions I think you mentioned earlier that you participated in? If you could elaborate a little bit more on that'd be great.
Yeah. So because I did my high school in India and all of my schooling in India, I did a lot of Indian contests for mathematics, for science, these kind of things. So I remember taking the Indian Mathematics Olympiad and then having like cleared the state level or some kinds of things. And I've taken it in different years of high school. So grade 10, grade 11, and all of that. So I've had those achievements. And yeah, just similar achievements. I think maybe getting, I don't know, the top student in the class or these kind of awards. Those were the ones were my academic achievements.
Great. Sounds good. So it seems like you've had a little bit of a different path compared to Shovon and Nishita, which is really helpful because I think a lot of students who apply, they might not have access to, certain extracurriculars, or they might just not have the opportunity for whatever reason. So it's really good to know that they have a path as well, right? They can do competitions, have really good grades, and you could get a scholarship like that. So that's really good to know. So I want to dive a little bit back into the research process. So I know you all, like Shovon and Nishita, you guys mentioned that you applied for your scholarship after you got accepted to your university. But just to kind of go a little bit further, how did you start that process? Even if it's just for your specific schools or other schools that you applied to Canada, how did you go about the research process for the scholarships? How did you come to know about them? And the same thing applies for you, Krishna. I know your one's a little bit different, but I'd still like to know that as well. So I'll start off with Shovon as well.
Sure. So there were just a few scholarships that I had my radar on, and I'll go through the process of how I guess picked. First of all, in the US, the financial need application is pretty general for every university. So I think it's like one application that covers everything. So that was that was a whole different thing. But then if I look at Canada, there were some things that automatically negated some scholarships for me, such as, for example, the ILOT. Every international student knows and at least wants to pursue the ILOT, but the ILOT is something that the school nominates you for. And for me, Mastermind just did not have that, I guess, like operation. And so I did know that it would be a lot tougher for me to even get nominated for the ILOT in the first place. So those kind of scholarships I just had to pragmatically negate because of the school I was in. So if you're in school and if you have this kind of consideration, think about it early, I would say. And then another one was there are other scholarships that I saw in places like Memorial and things like that. And to be frank, like I just felt like I had to do a cost benefit of where I was studying and like what opportunities were around me. And I found that Halifax as a city was just more full of opportunity than a lot of places, as well as being affordable. So in that sense, I did know about the presidential scholarship going into my application. I didn't know whether I would get it, but I did pick a school that was generally affordable for me, even with the entrance scholarship. And so that's just how I went with my Canadian choices. So yeah.
In my experience, regarding the scholarships, I actually did not know any upper years that went to my school or even applied to Schulich or York University in general. So I did not know of any scholarships that were even available. So it was just after I got my acceptance, just looking at the fees and trying to compare which school I wanted to go to. As I also did get accepted to U of T as well, and just comparing like the cost for both. And then I started my scholarship search just with the Google search. and it was actually super easy to find them for both U of T and York University. U of T's application process was a bit different, where I had to get nominated by my high school, to even partake in the application process. Whereas York University, as far as I remember, I just had to fill out my application myself. And I feel like it was a much smoother process, and I heard back fairly quickly. So I was able to make my decision before I for sure knew what I was doing school-wise.
Yeah, so I agree with both Shravan and Nishita as well. When I applied, because I only was considering U of T and Waterloo, and after getting accepted from both, I must say that the process I found for U of T was a little vague, because they have different campuses, and like the websites seem to be a little unsure about which scholarships apply to which campuses and which programs. And I think what I read was all scholarships for international students are automatically considered. I'm not sure if that was a wrong information or insufficient, anything like that. But for Waterloo, at least, most scholarships were just mentioned on the website, and they had, like a scholarship coordinator, so I could actually talk to that person, and they were very supportive in the search, and making sure that I was meeting the deadlines, getting all the required documents in on time. And yeah, it was a smooth process for Waterloo because it was more structured, and there were people to help with the process.
Great. Now I want to ask you, and it could be based on your experience or the people that have applied around you. What are some of the common mistakes you think that students make when they're preparing to apply for scholarships, etc. That we could share with the people watching today, to just kind of give them as a watch out, that even if it's from your experience that you made some mistakes that you wish you hadn't, or some mistakes that you've seen your friends make. What are some of the ones that you've seen, and if you could share that? So I'll start off with Shovon as well.
Sure. I have a bunch in my mind. First of all, if you can't tell already from my answer in the previous question, I definitely could have done a lot more research to begin with into the scholarships available in Canada in general. So the first thing I think is that we really focus on, at least people who, we really focus on which school we want to go to and how much it costs, but less about how we can prepare ourselves to cover some of those costs. It's like universities have these scholarships to mitigate tuition because international students pay so much. So looking more into it is definitely helpful. I did not have a resource like Wicked Connections before, and when I applied, so like looking into resources available is also very important. And also looking into local scholarships or external scholarships is very important. As an international student, we might not be eligible for a lot of Canadian external scholarships, and I also did not get any local scholarships, but I'm sure that people in other countries have a lot more opportunities for students that plan to go abroad. That's a guaranteed, because I've heard a lot of other people get fully covered by just external scholarships from their government or things like that. So that's one thing. Another thing is that bigger scholarships, such as like, I guess, the presidential scholarship or any of the international specific scholarships, require a lot of time to prepare sometimes. If you're especially not used to writing like these essays on the fly and things like that. So just making sure of knowing deadlines and not just looking at the, I guess, because sometimes these scholarships are given in advance of like other deadlines. So, and then something we talked about before was that spreading ECAs too thin, like doing Model UN, doing debate, doing this, that, but like not having the passion, I guess, reflected in what you're talking about is the biggest mistake that I see most people make. That really does not translate well to universities. And also confirming support from your school early on would be also important if you're planning to apply for the bigger scholarships. And negating entrance scholarships is also something like people always focus on the larger scholarships, but also looking at the entrance scholarships available, and also maintaining scholarships and having realistic expectations about that is very important, because I've seen so many people lose their scholarship and have a lot of trouble continuing university just because first year is not the same as the rest of the years, and like it's something that people need to really understand right off the bat and be clear with themselves about. And finally, tuition increases. Budgeting has to include possible tuition increases, because my $9,000 covered more than 60% of my first year, but it covered less than, I would say, 40% of my fourth year. So even though I was able to maintain the scholarship, it does vary based on what your university's tuition increase policies are. And you will not know this right off the bat, but there will be people, recruitment specialists and things like that, who you'll be able to talk to, who might give you at least a general idea of things, or you can look into the website's trends either and see those things, because getting the scholarship and maintaining the scholarship are equally important. So, yeah.
In my experience, I've had a few international students as friends that told me that they got so busy in their last semester of high school that they even forgot to even search for scholarships or even like think about it. I had one friend that did IB, and I know that last semester is really important for them in completing their degree. And she got so busy in her actual high school work that she forgot to even plan for scholarships for university. And I feel like just like keeping that in mind even before you start your application process, just doing like a little quick search, making sure that you meet your deadlines or you even know when they are, is really important. But other than that, as well, I feel like even if you find a scholarship that you might be suited for, but you feel like you don't necessarily meet all the requirements, there's no harm in applying at all. At most, you'll just not receive it, and that's okay. But in the case that you do write a really good application and you stand out to whoever is reading your application, more good can come out of it than bad. So I'd say even if you found something that doesn't even, like, you might feel like you might not even get it, just apply for it anyways and just see where that leads you.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Shravan and Nishita as well. So even in my case, when I was applying for scholarships, I definitely wish I started applying earlier, but also because I didn't really have plans of studying in Canada until beginning of grade 12. I think most people do have plans, I don't know, end of grade 10 or beginning of grade 11. So had I started my search earlier, I would obviously be more aware of the policies and the procedures and all of that. But other than that, I think there's no harm trying. I think nothing is too much because it's just so hard to know exactly what scholarships you're qualified for. It's never there's no harm in trying. So try as much as you can and reach out to as many people as you can, because you never know who's going to be helpful. And as Nishita said, I think even in my case, I first didn't get a high scholarship of $10,000 because it was really restricted to the topmost students in the university. And then I think just before I came to Canada, I got an email saying you've been upgraded to a higher scholarship because you're a confirmed student. Because I think most scholarships are given out before admissions are confirmed, or before offers are accepted, to just attract students. And if some students just deny the offers, they're given alternate students, or they're just given to other students who accept the offers. So I think that's something to look out for.
I think as an international student myself, I can definitely add to that as well. Like, research is definitely key, and starting sooner rather than later is definitely very important. Knowing what scholarships exactly you want to apply for, and nothing is really out of your reach. Just apply for it. I think I really agree with you guys on that point, that just apply. Well, like, let's see what happens. There's no guarantee that you won't receive it, or it's too far-fetched. Nothing is too. So to the people who are watching, I really want to reinstate that point as well. Like, nothing is far-fetched. Try your best. Be genuine and be authentic. I think that's the most important thing. Like, don't try to be something that you're not, and try to just amp up your application thinking that it will help. Just be genuine, because they really want to get to know you and make sure that you're a fit for the university and for the scholarship specifically. So I think those are great points. What I want to ask you next is, as we are a mentorship company, I want to know whether in your current, while you're going through university or, your professional life, what role has mentorship kind of played within your success, within everything that you've achieved so far? So again, we'll go with Shovon, Nishita, and then.
Personally, I find that I'm very introverted in terms of like having career conversations or like conversations like this, but the role that mentors play is to help you break through that. I find that they're the ones who will understand and recognize this, and help guide you through the process. I don't have much else to add other than the fact that it is a very valuable resource to have. So.
What about, to build on to that, like when you were applying for, university, selecting that, did you have somebody in your life that was kind of guiding you? It doesn't have to be, a professional mentor, but within, within your family. Usually people have like older brothers or sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Who did you have in your life to kind of guide you through that?
Personally, I was the older brother and the first to go to university from a lot like my generation, so abroad at least. So, and I did not have anyone helping to guide me through it, but obviously there were a lot of groups on Facebook back then, which were dedicated to helping students, prospective students, go to Canada and the United States. So I found a lot of connections there that helped like look at my essays or like tell me what things I need to highlight in the CV I was preparing, because it was the first time I was preparing such a thing and things like that. People who are already here, and that was very valuable, finding connections at SMU with who were existing Bangladeshi students. It helped me understand that this was a valid path that people took and achieved something out of. So that was very helpful, because sometimes personally, like I did not know a lot, like not many people know about St. Mary's University as an institution as much as they do like Waterloo or U of T, for example, for like say. So going in, I had a lot of questions, and I think that those questions were answered only because of seniors also chose this path. So that in that way, it is greatly helpful, and it does allow you to think of some unique alternate choices sometimes. So yeah.
Similarly to Chauvin, I was also the older sister in my family and the first to apply to university. So in the application process for university, I wouldn't say I had a lot of like mentorship help. If anything, I just got support from my family and from my high school counselor, which greatly aided me in that. But when I speak to about my university experience and like even just job application processes, I can't speak enough about the importance of it and like how much it actually helped me. Even when I first came to Shoe Lake, I joined a lot of like mentorship clubs and like found like formal mentors. And even when you come to York University or like Shoe Lake, we have a program where you're like partnered with another international student that's an upper year, and they also give you help. But what I found to be even more helpful than that was just like the informal mentorships that I formed, because I didn't understand how easy it was to ask for help from upper years, and they're all there. They're all willing to help you. So I would say that if you find someone that you know from your school right now that is on similar path that you are on, or even when you reach to university and you make a connection with someone, just keep it going, and it's literally no harm to ask for help at all. Even if someone came to me today and asked for like all help for like all 4 years of university, I'd give them all my information and I'd be like, here, I hope this helps you. And I feel like more times than not, that is the case for many students. So I definitely say reach out. There's no harm in reaching out. If anything, they just might not have time then and there. But I 100% believe that everyone wants to continue to help, especially if you're like asking help from an international student. As an international student, I think the community that we have is also very helpful and ready to help as well.
I think I can agree more with both Showan and Nishita. I was the first child in my family as well, but I must say that I did receive a lot of help from my high school, because there were students who went from my high school to Waterloo specifically in the past. They were really familiar with the procedures, and I also had upper years who went to Waterloo from the same school, so they're already in Waterloo. So I was connected with them, and they were really helpful in just letting me know things, because I think as an international student, you're just coming here with an idea of what it's going to be like and what you're going to be studying. But students from Ontario or even Canada, they just know a lot of things because, through school, all their friends apply to the same universities. things like that. So I think it's really important. I think mentorship is more important than, at least as important as academics. But once you reach university, it's all about connections and all about mentorship. I think, and through university, I've had so many amazing mentors just helping me with academics or job search, internships, resume critiques. That's a huge part, and all of those things. And I've personally also continued that once I've got into upper years, partnered with the university and their international student recruitment team. So, just helping as many students as possible, because I think it's important to get mentorship and also give. So, you have just that kind of community.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more, Krishna, because to the point of you making that, we as international students, we come to Canada with an idea, right? We don't know the reality of the matter. And so having that mentorship and that guidance from somebody who's already been through what you're about to go through is so invaluable. Like, personally, for me, I'm also an older sibling. I did not have any help. I didn't know anybody. I had to literally jump through many, many hoops and kind of learn by myself. And just to reinstate a little bit more, that's really what we're trying to do, to make this transition for international students a little bit more easier. We help with domestic students as well, but for international students specifically, we want to make that transition as smooth and as frictionless as possible, because being an international student myself, I know the amount of immense challenges you're about to embark on as soon as you step foot onto essentially the country. So it's very, very important that you have that guidance so that you don't make mistakes and, you can essentially maximize your whole experience, right? So with that being said, I want to wrap up this session, but I want to ask you one last question. What are some of your top tips that you would share with some of the students who are watching today and who will be watching, who are interested to come to Canada to study, for scholarships, anything that you would have, you would be willing to share as potential mentors? So that'd be really great. So I'll start off with Shovon and Nishita, and then.
Sure. Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate one thing that Nishita said a little while ago about just going for it and applying for any scholarship that you see, because I worked closely with the university in a lot of aspects in my final year, and they gave us details of how millions of dollars of scholarships just from St. Mary's go unawarded because no student applies for it. So it is very important to just apply, because you never know how lucky you'll get, even though you might think that you're not the best candidate for that application. And other than that, in general, just coming from a place like St. Mary's University, if you're looking at a lot of universities and are looking at some, more cost-effective and option and things like that, a small tip would be to not negate primarily undergraduate universities for your undergraduate degree, because you'll have a smaller classroom setting and much more connection with your profs and things like that oftentimes, not to discourage you to apply to bigger schools, but it is a good second option too. And also just, keep true to yourself when you're applying for universities, because they're most times looking for a fit more than just a good grade. So yeah, that's all. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, just continuing off from that, I think it's really important again about saying that it's not what you do, but how you put that into words and how you show that to the application, whoever's reading your application. So even if you do the smallest job ever, you have to really just highlight the importance of it and the impact it's made. And then I think no matter what you do, you can always get a positive outcome from that. Definitely just apply and give it a shot, even if you don't think you're going to get there. But also just reaching out to the community. There's so many more international students that you can even just with a Facebook search quickly look up, or even on LinkedIn, that already are at your school and they are willing to help for sure. So even if you reach out, at worst they just won't reply. But most of the time, more than not, you'd get an answer and they'll be very helpful for you. So I would say just reach out and hope for the best.
Yeah, so all of that, and adding on to that, I think as both Shovon and Nishita said, you have to be aware and be confident and not stop trying and all of that. And I can speak more about coming to Canada and then looking for mentorship. I think one important thing is just to be really confident of yourself and really clear of what you want. I think that's one thing I and a lot of my friends who are international as well struggle in the beginning, because it being a new country, you don't really have that confidence. You might not be, as confident as others because you're not sure if you're doing something wrong, or it's just due to the cultural difference or anything like that, right? I think that's something you should try to get rid of as soon as possible, because everyone is new to university, and everyone has to start somewhere, right? That's the first one. And I think another one, although it's not been touched upon, is to be really financially aware. I think that's something that's not spoken about as much, but I think being financially aware as soon as you can is really important, because being international, everything is so expensive for you, and you're not sure how to estimate the costs, and there are lots of unexpected costs as well. So I think that's something you really should be aware of since beginning, and there's no harm, trying to get as much help as you can. So if there's anything you can do to, get, better financially, you should be trying to do that.
Do you have any tips on how to be a little bit more financially aware? Because I think that is an extremely important point, and I do want to help students provide some tips on how they can be a little bit more financially aware. So if you wanted to share some thoughts on that, and if anybody else wants to share, that'd be really great. As well.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think most students might be under the impression that, they're really young, 16 or 17, or, 17 or 18 when they come in. They're not really sure of how to manage their finances, or even if it's necessary to manage finances. But I think it's super important. So I think starting off, like how, having just all your costs for the next 6 months or anything like that, just having it all in like an Excel table or something like that. What your rents and your tuition and any of those costs, you have them all out, and how you should be getting, money for those payments and all of that. So I think that's one thing to start with. And I think other than that, just, try to build your, connections, and, think about, volunteering or doing part-time jobs, internships, any of those, and starting the search early. Because I think coming in, I had no idea of internships or anything like that, and getting the first internship, getting your first job, especially in a new country, in a new environment, is the huge part. I think we all can agree with that. So I think start your search early, and that's going to make your journey a lot smoother, because once you start working or doing jobs, you grow confident, and you're a lot more aware of things here.
On to that point, Shovon and Nishita, do you have anything to add in terms of being more financially aware? If there's any tips you wanted to cover?
Yeah, I could go a little. So your university, even if it is your university as a whole or like any department, there will definitely be like a financial literacy education aspect of, at some point. And if you don't see it, then you can do it yourself. Like take a leadership role in your university, and you can definitely do it, because there are banks and like organizations around you here who are willing to help you with that process. But away from that, anyways, like attend financial literacy sessions. Go ask your like the person who's opening your bank account will have some tips for you on maintaining credit and things like that. These are very important things that will affect you in the future. You might not be thinking about them right now. And even before coming, just make sure, as mentioned before, that like your costs and like what you have your budget for tuition increases, possibly what scholarships, how much of it is covered by a scholarship. It's a very key lesson to learn as a student, other than like what you learn in the classroom. So, yeah.
I'd just like to add a little small point to that. I think as international students studying in Canada, we're really lucky that with our study permit, we're able to work part-time, which you don't really have the opportunity to have in like maybe the States or like countries in Europe. So I would say definitely take advantage of that. Even if you are living on campus, there are so many on-campus jobs that even are flexible, and they work with you during your school schedules, and you're able to make the most of your time. So even if you're looking for some small cash just on the side, just for your expenses or extra spending money, I feel like take advantage of that. And then when it comes to like internships and full-time jobs later on, we might not know as much about the opportunities available. So that's when I would say reach out to your upper years, your mentors, even friends in your years, and start the search early, like Krishna said, because it might be a little more difficult for us, but definitely it's something that you should look forward to beforehand.
I think those are some really, really great points. I think, yeah, internships, part-time jobs, just to help you financially a little bit more. Those are really important things. And I think a lot of people do think about part-time jobs, but it can be quite challenging as an international student to kind of get good part-time jobs, good internships to begin with. I'm sure we've all had that challenge, but it is possible. And I think the biggest key thing here is to start those research sooner rather than later, right? To be more informed. So with that being said, I think we've covered pretty much all the bases when it comes to scholarships and, the insights that you guys have provided. I wish that I had this when I was applying, because I think that would have been very helpful for me. And I really want to thank you guys for all your valuable knowledge that you've shared. Clearly, you guys are very successful and you're doing really well. And we really, really appreciate taking time out of your busy schedules to kind of be here and share your tips with our students. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.